Well, good morning for another 3 minutes. I'm Lynn Snodgrass, the CEO of the best doggone chamber in the Pacific Northwest, and have been for quite a while. So I want you to know that, wouldn't you know that a technology presentation is having all kind of technological problems. So we're going to do our best with what we have, because of some of the communication wasn't as planned. But I know that you're patient and you're going to get your money's worth, believe me. So my husband and I went on a date this weekend. I took him on a date to one of his favorite places, and that's East Wind Cafe in Cascade Locks, because he likes those $10 ice cream cones. And I'm not telling you that because I want to brag about how many calories he ate that day. I want to tell you that it was so wonderful to drive on this street in front of Quality Inn and see the parking lot full. Middle of the day on Sunday, it just really welled up my heart that business is coming back, that people are traveling, that people are staying, that people are coming to Gresham and they're leaving their money behind and then going on home. So anyway, it brought tears to my eyes, and so did watching my husband eat that ice cream cone. All right. I want to introduce our presenting sponsors today. Aero Sanitary. Josh isn't here, but I'm so grateful that Aero Sanitary is a presenting sponsor. Columbia Bank. Mark, where are you? There you go, Mark. Mark, thank you. And Umpqua Bank is a presenting sponsor as well. Did Amy come from Boeing and I missed saying good morning to her? The Boeing Company is also a presenting sponsor of the Business and Leaders Luncheon, as is Portland General Electric and Mount Hood Community College. There's a new sponsor to the Business and Leaders Luncheon. Dr. Scari, thank you for making this decision to sponsor this event. So grateful. We have stakeholder sponsors, Gresham Barlow School District, and always MetroEast Community Media, our media sponsor. Keith has worked overtime to get me this very stable podium and making the presentation work last minute. You never know. So Keith, thank you. With that in mind, we are recording the webinar today, and it's going to be available on cable channels with MetroEast Community Media and also through the Chamber website. So on your way out, if you'd like to pick up one of these at the registration desk, this will tell you when it's going to be rebroadcast from what you saw today. And you could share it, you can see it again, or share it with your neighbors. I'd like to acknowledge some of my bosses that are in the room. Dr. Scari, I've already alluded to. Dr. Scari is on our board, the Chamber Board. Thank you very much for putting your time in there. Alex Marcus, one of our new board members from the Village Retirement Center, and Warner Allen, who's been here as long as dirt. No, I'm kidding. No. Warner, thank you very much. He's the chair of Government Affairs Council, and Government Affairs is who makes sure that these Business and Leaders Luncheons happen. It's their responsibility. We have an elected official with us today, so we need to watch our P's and Q's. Councilor Jerry Hinton is with us. Councilor, there you are. Thank you very much for all the work that you do for the city and for taking time to be here today. Thank you so much. And finally, in my introductions, I would like to introduce someone to you that's very special. She's standing in the back of the room pretending like it's not going to happen. But I would like to introduce to you the new CEO of the Gresham Area Chamber of Commerce, Stacy Bloom. She's here. She's not going to come up and talk. She's just going to point out. So if Stacy didn't have a chance to touch bases with you on your way in, please take time to get to know her on the way out. Give her your business card, say hello, and make yourself familiar with her, because she's dying to get to know every one of you. Okay, today we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating and revolutionary topics of our time, no matter how old you are. Artificial intelligence, commonly known as AI. Without realizing it, AI has become a central part of our lives, shaping the world in the ways that we never could have imagined decades ago. I mean, I can still remember rotary phone and party lines, and look how far we've come. I actually now have a flip phone. So anyway, The history behind AI is interesting as well. The term was coined in 1956 by a computer scientist, John McCarthy, not Paul McCartney of the Beatles, but John McCarthy during a Dartmouth conference. That marked the birth of AI as a formal discipline. Early AI research was focused on solving complex problems through logical reasoning and manipulation. Here's an interesting milestone in AI history. It started at a chess match between a champion chess player and a computer. The chess player was victorious in 1996. 1 year later, AI had changed everything. IBM's Deep Blue defeated the reigning world-class champion, Garry Kasparov, in 1997. This showcased AI's ability to surpass human expertise in strategic thinking and calculations. I know at any point in time, any computer can beat me in chess because I'm not a chess player. You may not be a chess player either. AI is also very important and has had a tremendous impact in revolutionizing healthcare. Machine learning algorithms analyzing vast amounts of medical data is already aiding diagnosing diseases and predicting patient outcomes. So my guess is if you have a family member that's having a major health problem, AI somehow is probably involved in the care of that family member. You may not be a chess player, and your business may not have anything to do with healthcare. So is AI something you need to know more about? Why are you here? Can it bring more to your bottom line? You're not in healthcare. You must be curious, and that's why you're here. So, where do I start? What does it really do? Those are the two questions we're going to answer this morning. These questions and more will soon be answered by our two speakers. First is going to be, I'm going to introduce both of them right now, and then I'm going to have one of them come up. First is going to be Patrick Burton of Space Dog Media and Benvision. He's going to show us what it does. And then we're going to have Patrick Sheehan from Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate Company. Why a real estate company? You'll see. He's going to tell us and show us how to get started. After our speakers have done presenting, we'll have plenty of time for your Q&A. They might be okay with you popping up, but let them finish their presentation, write down your question, and when they're both done, as always, we will turn it over to question and answer, and you'll have your time. Okay? So with that being said, Patrick number one, not Patrick number two. Patrick, would you like to come on up, make your presentation? There you go.
All right. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you, Lynn. Very excited to be here. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave my work up through that entire speech, but I appreciate that though. This is some of the stuff that I've done. I'm a videographer, visual artist, AR developer. Those are some of the things I do for a living. But another way to say that is just creative technologist. I am an artist who uses new technologies to make my art. I'm also an AI enthusiast, and I'm the owner of Space Dog Media, as many of you know. I also have a second company called Benvision, which I'm CEO and co-founder of, which is a revolutionary new solution for low vision and blind people that's also powered by AI. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to give you the larger picture. So some of you may be looking at my profile picture and analyzing it and asking yourselves a question. And you would be right that my suit was AI generated. I made this video on Instagram showing the process of generating the suit. And it's still my highest performing video on my Instagram page. It's got almost 10,000 likes, almost 40,000 plays. Who's counting though? I mean, the point is that I made that video and everyone liked it. Almost everyone liked it. Some of these people weren't too keen on it. Might have to blur that before it goes on cable. But that was just for fun. Here is your introduction, and welcome to your introduction to generative artificial intelligence. So my job is to give you a little overview, give you some contextual information so that when Patrick Sheehan jumps up here, you have a good understanding of what the tool is that he's going to show you how to use. But what is artificial intelligence? What is generative artificial intelligence? Good questions, Patrick. So you may have seen these terms, thank you. You may have seen these terms thrown around, perhaps interchangeably. And we're going to start with some vocabulary here. I'm sorry, I know that's not very sexy, but this is going to give you a nice, stable foundation for the rest of your knowledge, the rest of your journey through AI today. So you've seen these terms, AI, ML, DL, deep learning, perhaps, generative AI. What do they all mean? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI. But again, these terms are not, in fact, interchangeable, even though you may have heard them being thrown around as such. And what's less important than understanding exactly what each term means is understanding the relationship between them. And that relationship looks like this. So basically, you have in the middle generative AI, which is a subfield of deep learning, which is a subfield of machine learning, which is a subfield of artificial intelligence. And then if there was a bigger circle drawn around this, that would be computer science. All right, so these are all just little nests within each other. But to give you a little more in-depth overview, artificial intelligence, as Lynn mentioned, first popped up in the 50s. And this is the larger field of computer science that just deals with creating agents that can accomplish tasks that are normally thought to require human intelligence. So earliest examples, as we remember, the chess bots, and more famously, IBM's Watson, who humiliated and defeated Ken Jennings in that exhibition Jeopardy match, as you can see by these totally real pictures. All right, so that was artificial intelligence, popped up in the 50s. Here's machine learning, which came along, and now this is a type of AI that it can learn on its own without needing you to go in and change its code. So imagine that it's a robot and you want the robot to get smarter. In the past, you would have to open up the back of the robot and change all the wiring around. Now you don't have to do that. Now you can just feed it a data set and say, here, get smarter. And the robot will look at the data set, draw connections between the different data points on the data set, and it will learn the connections between them and get smarter in that way. That's what machine learning is. We saw machine learning algorithms popping up in like the 80s with junk mail algorithms, fraud detection, social media, of course. We all remember that documentary. So this is what machine learning is. First started popping up around the 80s, around the same time that we started to need junk mail filters. Next up, deep learning. So this is a type of machine learning that's specifically modeled to resemble the human brain, so that the way that it processes it actually uses something called artificial neural networks that are modeled after our own neurons. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So we see examples of deep learning with Siri and Alexa, and of course with autonomous driving. If anyone has a self-driving car, shouldn't be called that, but I digress. That's what deep learning is. And so I told you that I was going to show you what an artificial neural network is. So this is what an Anne looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Rashida Jones, who plays Anne in the NBC show Parks and Rec. Excuse me. This is what an Anne looks like. It's basically, I mean, it looks kind of like a flow chart, like on steroids, right? You basically just have all of these little dots are nodes or neurons in a brain map, and they're all connected to little other neurons or nodes, and that's what a neural network looks like. Okay, so we had deep learning. Now we have generative AI. Deep learning popped up sometime in like the early 2000s. Generative AI, we're looking at like 2010s. And this is what we have now, right? It's a deep learning model that's not only able to learn and compute in a similar way that we do with our own brains, but now it can generate new data based on what it's learned from the data set that it's been fed. So, for example, with ChatGPT, if you've ever seen that, you can type some text in and it'll output new text based on what it knows about the text that you put in and everything that it's been trained on, which, again, it's been trained on like the entire internet, so that's a lot of information. So, Why is generative AI exploding right now? Why did it just get so popular like in the last year? Why are we hearing about it on the news all the time? To understand that, we have to go back about a half dozen years and understand that machine learning, the different fields of machine learning, they used to be very separated. So, for example, somebody who works in computer vision wouldn't talk to somebody who works in speech synthesis. Somebody who works in speech synthesis wouldn't talk to somebody who works in audio generation, and so on. And they wouldn't talk to someone who works in robotics. So all of these different fields, they're all making progress, but they're making it incrementally in different directions. However, in 2017, that all changed when Google released a paper describing something that they call transformers. And transformers, what they do is they allow these AI models, they allow them to compute using natural language. So that it's a difficult concept to grasp, but if you just think about it like as if the computers aren't any longer thinking in codes and numbers, they're thinking in terms of language, kind of like us. And now they're able to talk to each other. And now a music generation model can talk to a speech synthesis model, or a robotics model can talk to a speech synthesis model, and now they can learn from each other. The robotics model can learn data sets that the speech synthesis model puts out and learn how it should respond to different things that are said to it, and so on. So this enabled all of the different fields of machine learning to start making exponential progress at a rate that we've never seen before. Oh yeah, by the way, so GPT, if you're curious, it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So you all have that foundational vocabulary now that you can infer what this means. It's generative, meaning that it takes in data and outputs new data. It's pre-trained, meaning that it's been trained on a data set, in this case the entire internet. And it's a transformer, meaning that it processes in natural language. Pardon me. So, in November 22nd, we all remember, OpenAI released ChatGPT. From a business perspective, we still don't fully understand why they did this. We think maybe somebody back there was afraid that someone else was going to do it and they just wanted to be the first mover. But people have been working on these are called large language models. People have been working on these for years, and they never talked about releasing one to the public. And then OpenAI, this company behind ChatGPT, just kind of did it without talking to anyone and with no warning, and just kind of to see what would happen. And what's happened? So they caused this major disruption, right? They got the attention of pretty much the entire world. Now the government wants in, all the governments want in, of course they do. And all the largest corporations are fighting with each other to have the most advanced, most sophisticated artificial intelligence models. And so that's why we're seeing, if anybody has tried to pay attention to all of the AI news that's coming out of the tech world, it's nearly impossible because your inbox will just be flooded with 15 or 16 new AI tools that have been released, and then you have all these beta tests that you got to sign up for, and it's just it's a mess. It's a fire hose effect, if you've heard that term before, where just there's an overwhelming abundance of information coming out, and it's really hard for people to keep up with it. And that's why there's people like me going around kind of trying to catch everybody up on all of this stuff, because you can't expect a regular person to be keeping up with all of this. So these are the different types of generative AI. There is actually a lot more than just this, but this is just to give you a picture of like what they're doing, what these models are doing. So the most basic, ChatGPT, text to text, but then there's also text to image models where you input text, you get an image. There's text to video where you input text and you get a video based on your text, etc. So they're basically, all of these generative models are taking one type of data and transforming it into another, or transforming is the wrong word, generating a new type of data based on what it already knows. So like I mentioned, ChatGPT is text-to-text, Bard, Claude, Bing, all of these guys that you're hearing about. they're all text to text. And all of these large language models are called large language models. They're very aptly named LLMs. So how do they work? Think of it just like a very sophisticated form of predictive text. You all have it on your phones when you're trying to write blah, blah, blah. You didn't mean to write ducking, right? And this is essentially how ChatGPT works, is that it's trained on, it's not actually trained on words, it's trained on strings of words because it's more efficient that way. But it basically looks at the text that you input and it says, what's the most likely text that comes after this? And it just keeps on doing that over and over again. That's all it's programmed to do. That's the only thing that it's trained to do. What are the dangers? So you'll see this. I think OpenAI may have actually edited the wording on this since I took this screenshot, but this is the gist of what they say. The system may occasionally generate incorrect or misleading information or produce offensive or biased content. It is not intended to give advice. And again, this is just a result of the way that it's trained. It's just looking at what does the internet say is the most likely next word or next string of words that comes after this string of words, and it's outputting that. So because of that, we can't treat it like a truth machine. All right. You need to be very vigilant when you're working with these platforms in auditing everything that it writes back to you. You have to proofread because it can be wrong, and it can be very confidently wrong and convincingly wrong, which can be a problem. So that's one of the limitations, and the way that we refer to when it gives a wrong answer or an incorrect or false statement, we call that hallucinating. And so that's a pretty big limitation of ChatGPT and all of these large language models right off the bat. A couple other ones, math. It's actually pretty remarkable that these LLMs can do math at all, but they're not calculators. So don't try to. They do okay with word problems, but don't try to feed them your your algebra homework or anything, because that's not going to work. Guardrails. So OpenAI in particular, and you'll hear about this a lot on Reddit, they have all of the eyes on the world trained on them, meaning that there's only that they have to follow a lot of compliance. And because of that, there's some things that they won't let you. They put guardrails, which are basically an intermediate between the user and the interface. And they'll look for, like, if you're asking it to tell you a joke about Xi Jinping, it's not going to do that. If you ask it to describe an offensive drawing of Vladimir Putin or something, it's not going to do that. So these are limitations, and those are just political examples, but there are other examples of things that it's not going to do because of compliance reasons. Lastly, the free version, actually both versions now of ChatGPT, they cannot browse the web because their training data only goes up to September of 2021. So you can't query it to search the web. Sometimes they think they can search the web, and they'll pretend that they are surfing the web for you, but that's not actually what they're doing. Exception to this is Bing. Microsoft's Bing actually does have a search engine built into it, and it's an AI chatbot based on ChatGPT because they have a partnership with OpenAI. So that's the exception. If you want to browse the web with an AI chatbot, use Microsoft Bing. Here's some of the strengths. Creative writing, conceptualization, summarizing, translating, and compare and contrast. These are all language-related tasks, and I encourage each of you to go test out how good these large language models are at these tasks, because they will surprise you at the efficacy of its ability to complete language-related tasks. But again, it's all language-related. And what's great about translating, by the way, if you have a friend who speaks a different language or something, it won't just translate the text, it'll localize the text so that it actually sounds like it's being spoken by a native speaker. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, here's the fun part. So when these large language models get to a certain size, when the data set that it's trained on reaches a certain capacity, it starts to showcase these abilities that even the people who engineered the model cannot explain to you. Because, and you'll hear this term tossed around a lot, it's a black box, because they engineer the initial model, they tell it, okay, be like a predictive text model, and then they send it off into the world, and that's it. And everything that it's trained on, there's no way for the engineers to possibly get a window into all of the data that it's being trained on and how it's actually making those connections to formulate the outputs that it's forming. Anyway, so these are some emergent abilities that have popped up. Basic arithmetic, again, I'm going back to the math thing. It's pretty remarkable that that these large language models can do math at all, because again, they weren't trained to do math, they were trained to predict text. So what happened was that it was trained on enough math textbooks that it learned the rules of math in natural language, and then it learned, okay, so when that person asks me what 1 + 1 is, then the most likely response is 2, based on what I've read. So it can do math, but not very well. Research grade chemistry knowledge, this is a cool one too, well, depending on your perspective, is that in the same vein, you train it on enough chemistry textbooks, it can now predict with remarkable accuracy. It can discover new chemical compounds. Theory of mind. This is one that I like. So if you have theory of mind, which we all do, if you have theory of mind, then it means that you can infer what somebody else in the room may be thinking. So Terry, I can infer that you may have been troubled by my last statement about the chemistry knowledge. And I can infer that based on the nature of what I was saying and because of the face that you're making. So we all have theory of mind. We have the ability to infer what other people are thinking. Well, now ChatGPT has that ability too. And so do these other large language models, that they have been proven to be able to predict with accuracy what the user may be thinking, or what somebody else might be, what an imaginary person may be thinking. Last one, which is really cool, is somebody was able to get ChatGPT connected to an fMRI scan, and that's...
What's fMRI?
It reads your brain waves. Somebody connected GPT to a fMRI scanner, and it was able to reproduce the person's thoughts. Now, this, I know that sounds scary, but something that might quell your fears is that this GPT model needed to be specifically trained on this one person's thoughts. So we're not actually at that point yet where people are able to read your thoughts. Still, we haven't really thought about needing to protect our intellectual property over our thoughts, right? We're just now having that conversation about our image, but thoughts is a whole new territory.
Did you watch it?
I just thought it would be fun to do this. Hey, there's my favorite AI. It's Bender. All right. So this is the fun part, right? When do we get Skynet? When do we get Terminator 2? Well, what I can say is we're not getting time travel. So I know that's disappointing to hear if you're homophobic or racist, but we're not getting time travel. That's just not scientifically possible. However, a paper was written on this very topic. How do we get from here to a doomsday scenario? And this isn't the only paper that was written. This is one of my favorites because they have this great graphical, this graphic that describes it very clearly. And you can find this, by the way, on archive.org. There's a lot of great research papers. It's ARXIV, very intuitive spelling, arxiv.org. And I'm sorry I didn't write that on here. I thought that I did. And if you're not like a research paper reading type person, then you can always take the research paper, plug it into ChatGPT, and ask it to summarize it for you like you're 5. But what I want to point out about this graph is that unaligned AGI, which is right here at the top, that's the Terminator scenario. That means that we're getting an AI that becomes sentient and decides that humans are the problem and needs to wipe humans out, right? So, yeah, that's right there at the top. But all the other 5 scenarios, a natural natural disaster, so climate change, nuclear, biological, environmental, stable repressive regime, excuse me. So these are all scenarios that we all already had to be worrying about anyways, right? There's only one extra one that, honestly, I don't think it's very likely. I think it's a lot more likely that we take ourselves out with one of the five below first. And so if you weren't already worried about those other five things, then I mean, enjoy the ride. If you're still feeling a little bit fearful, don't worry, because I think the best way to quell those fears and to make yourself feel a little bit better about AI and where we're headed is, of course, to engage with those tools. Engage with ChatGPT, use these LLMs, learn the limitations, because you will very quickly be able to see how far we are from one of these models actually having the capacity to take over the world or something crazy like that. So that's what I encourage you all to do, and that is what my good friend Patrick is here to help you do as well. So with that, I'll conclude my section of the presentation, and I'll hand it over to Patrick. Thank you, everyone.
Gosh, that was awesome. I actually didn't know any of that stuff. So I am a real estate broker. My background is in advertising, and so I tend to push on technology to figure these things out before other people usually do in my industry. So I spent a lot of time this year learning AI and how to make it work for small businesses. And so why does somebody that flips pancakes for a living care about this stuff? I'm going to show you. And I had all of this preloaded on my system, but I'm having to use this. So, and I apologize for all of that, trying to get started there. So what can you guys use as a small business owners? How do you use this? There's a few things that I use it for fast research, for social media posts, which are really annoying to do, and we all have trouble with content, brainstorming, and then automating repetitive tasks. So this is the language model ChatGPT. So things like, I was talking to Michael earlier about property taxes. There's a thing called compression, right? And you can Google some of this stuff, but when you Google it, it leads you down all sorts of pathways that you may not want to go. So if you type it into ChatGPT, it parses all that stuff. So it's just it's like a conversation. So you have to talk to it like it's a person. So explain Oregon compression in property taxes to a 12-year-old.
What does that say about you, Michael?
I'm actually 10, so I don't understand it yet.
So you see that this comes out, and for some reason it does this line-by-line thing, which I think is a bit of theatrics, but it gives you all of that sort of information. If you are talking with clients or a friend and they bring up like a book that you don't want to read, summarize the 7 habits of highly effective people. And so this is a nice shortcut to doing any type of research. One of the things I like to use it for, whenever you're making like a social media post, or we speak in metaphors, right? And so we look at different things that have happened over time to say you're in my industry, and real estate is down 38% from last year from sales. And so I want to equate that to something. So this has the sum of all human knowledge up to September of 2021. So you can say, list 3 things that declined by 38% year over year.
Oh my God.
Oh, well, this is a great thing of live demos. See, it might have to be more specific about some of the things. Okay, so there we go. So I had to tell it to go to historical data, not just the most recent. So this is a terrific way to get around. I think it's just a lot faster than Google. It's a lot more comprehensive than Google, but to Patrick's point, you do have to verify all of these things because sometimes they aren't as... it just uses internet data, so sometimes they can get it wrong. Into the area of social media posts and automating. This is one of my favorite things because social media posts, we all have to do them for our business, right? And it's a lot of work to come up with the ideas. So I'm on the board for the Salvation Army in Portland. The other day I was talking to them about how to automate some of this stuff. And so I asked it, create a content calendar for the Salvation Army Portland for every 3 days in the month of August relating to Salvation Army history for social media. And the speed at which it comes up with these things are crazy.
Will it pull the pictures from your phone then too, or not?
This isn't an image model. This is just language. So, but I do want to touch on that because this is something that I use quite a bit. Is the social media part of this, and you can see it goes through all this stuff and just gives you the ideas that you can then expand on, or you can say. Let's say take, because it's a conversation, right? So you say take the August 31st post and write a 2-paragraph post for Facebook with hashtags.
Okay.
Well, and I didn't even type that correctly, but so it'll add hashtags, emojis, everything. Now, with all this stuff, you want to go through and actually edit this.
Can you voice record it instead of having to type it?
Huh?
That's the question. The question is, can you just speak into a phone or?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, this is.
Having to type it?
I'm sure you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, with the mobile app you can.
Okay.
So then you can actually have it use different voices and things too. So you can say, make this sound like Snoop Dogg.
Yo.
So, by the way, what I'm doing here is called prompting. So it's you type in a prompt, and while they say that AI is going to take over a lot of fields, especially in things like legal assistants that have to do repetitive tasks and things, they say it's going to create a new career path of prompt engineering. So just someone that knows how to ask the right questions to generate the right response. So, like Patrick had said, you can say, translate this into Romanian, and then boom, it just does us. It's so these are things that we can all do. If you want to quickly translate something into Spanish and do it in a post. If one of the things that I wanted to show you is the way I did something in. I live in Happy Valley, and Happy Valley has a concert series, right? And this is every summer they do concerts. I just copied and pasted the entire page from the Happy Valley concert series and dumped it into ChatGPT and said, write me a social media post for each one of these and target people from Portland for moving them to Happy Valley with these as the hook, and it just did it. And so I then took each one and translated it. But these are now Facebook posts that I've made that I'm throwing $50 a piece at, and they're all over Happy Valley now because people like them. It gives them information. You can say add a map, add these hashtags, all of those. So there's other things like with the Salvation Army the other day, we had a problem with there's a radio station called The Fish. It's a Christian radio station, and there's a concert series that they had last year, and we had a booth there, and they just had Salvation Army officers standing around doing nothing, and no one came into the booth. And so I said, give me 5 ideas for attracting people to my booth at the Salvation Army during a Christian music festival. And so any of these are fairly generic, but the way I prompted it correctly the last time, it was more specific and gave some pretty interesting things like an instrument petting zoo and all sorts of different things. And that's another thing with the brainstorming. Say you have a new company and you want to have a catchy domain name for it, right? And you're running out of ideas. Say, give me 10 domain name ideas for a company that rehomes monkeys with bad behavior. And it just rips them out. So, I mean, just a great way to come up with ideas and brainstorming. You can also say, now write a 30-second radio script promoting idea number 6. And these are crazy because it actually includes music and everything. Monkey chatter. I mean, this is gonna it's a great starting point. It's nothing that you want to just copy and paste and send in, but these are terrific, especially for like Jerry. You could do this for your fundraising emails, because all the monotonous stuff that we have to rewrite the same thing over and over, you just treat it like a conversation and talk to it and say, my name's Jerry Hinton, and I'm running for re-election to the Gresham City Council. My strengths are this, and press the button and have it write your fundraising emails for you. You can do that everywhere. So one other thing, and I'll just leave you with the one final idea with this. Because these are conversations, one of the interesting things that I started doing with this is the more it knows about you, the better, right? And it gives you better content. So if you start with your bio sketch, right? Go to your website, copy and paste your bio sketch and say, this is my bio. I want you to understand my business better. Ask me 10 questions about my business. And the thing will ask you questions, and you can respond to all those questions. And what it did for me was it just hammered down to the finest level of detail. And now on that Sorry?
Is that just in the paid account?
No, it'll do it with anything, yeah. So you can go back to those threads, and they're right here. All your threads will appear here. And I can then go back and have it write a bio sketch for this event or anything. So anyway, that's a few of the little tricks out there.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, just add to what you said about making it your own. So we have a 10-year-old who wanted to plan a pool party at the end of school and to play around with it. We went on to GPT, and we said, she said, tell it to make me a fun invitation for a pool party. And so she used it, and she tweaked it a little bit for Troutdale, but she says, summer's here, it's time to play. Come jump in my pool, we'll make waves all day. A splashing good time under the Troutdale sun. At my pool party, the fun has just begun.
Yeah.
So a 10-year-old Mr. over there in the corner, can use it and apply it to themselves. And it's interesting to see that, but even she was having fun with it.
Absolutely, and that's one of my favorite things to do with it is make it do poems or rhymes and things. I was trying to entertain my buddy's 4-year-old kid the other day, and as things were happening around this kid, I was putting this into ChatGPT and saying, give me a 12-line poem about her dad is angry that she's blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, look, the internet has this poem about what just happened. And she was completely entertained. So, okay, thank you very much.
So don't go away, Patrick, and the other Patrick, go on up to the microphone so you can answer questions. And the reason I want you, thank you, good. The reason we want you by the microphone is because this is being recorded, and so it's a little bit easier to hear you. So, questions? Yeah, Mike? Here we go.
Why does the training stop in September of 2021? And from what you know, are there any other alternatives that go more recently? And are there plans to bring ChatGPT, give it more recent knowledge?
Yeah, great questions, Mike. So I'm not a representative for OpenAI, obviously, but what I know, first question was about the training cutoff date. It was arbitrary. The September of 21. That was just the date that was chosen. And once what they found, this is something that Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, I remember him saying, is that once the data reaches a certain size, there's diminishing returns. And so they found that the amount of data they used to train up to September 21 was sufficient for GPT 3.5, which is this model, and GPT 4, which is the model you get if you pay for it. They are working on GPT 5, which I believe has training data from more recent dates. But yeah, that's what I can say about that.
Okay, another question. Who over here was right? Warner? No.
I did, but that was the same question that Mike asked.
Oh, okay. Neil?
You had mentioned that even the engineers who build some of these components don't know how it works. You're calling it a black box. Understand the concept, but how on earth can an engineer create something like this or part of it and not know how it works? He made it, or she. Them.
Certainly at the high level they could explain it, but there's the black box part is the training data that gets fed into it, and the way that it changes the way that it's processing the data based on what it knows about the data. And so the process, even if there was a way to observe all of the data that's going in and how it's being processed by these models, there's too much data. No human could possibly make any sort of inference on that because there's just too much information to analyze.
Heidi, next question.
I heard something on NPR about a lawsuit that's coming up that could potentially affect the data that it can pull from. Have you been tracking that?
Yes. Yeah, everyone's getting sued. Stable Foundation's getting sued, OpenAI's getting sued, and everyone's also rushing to cover their butts to figure out what they're going to do when they get sued. These lawsuits, I'm also not a lawyer, but I'm well read on this particular case, or these particular cases, and they're going to come down to fair use, right? I've got like a hair in my mouth, something like that. Okay, it's going to come down to fair use. Is where the argument that a lot of these AI companies are probably going to make is that, well, when people put their information on the internet, there were terms of service that they all agreed to, that they definitely read every page of it and hit agree, right? And then the plaintiffs are going to say, well, you can't reasonably expect everybody in the world to be reading the terms of service. And then it's going to come down to, was there copyright infringement? Yeah, probably. Is it protected by fair use? That's going to depend on how transformative these works are. So with ChatGPT, I think they have a pretty good case for the text that it's generating being transformative. But there's different things that they're going to look at for that. And another thing I'll say is that they're going to be going off of precedent heavily. And there was another case of I don't want to get this wrong. It was an artists guild versus Google. It was Google Image Search or Google Books. You know how they have those book previews that you can Google a book and then read a few pages from the books. Well, a bunch of authors got together and they didn't like this, and so they sued Google, and Google won that case. But it was deemed that by photo scanning pages of these books and not making them all available to read, so you can't read the book front to back, but you can read a couple pages so you can get the feel for whether you want to buy the book, that they decided that the purpose was transformed enough that that Google can keep doing what they're doing and that they don't have a case on copyright infringement.
Okay, another question.
There's the if I can just add to that a little
Okay.
bit. There's also besides language models, there's image models, and one of the big troubles that are coming out right now are those images when you say, I'd like an American flag with a Asian woman standing in front of it saluting. That's coming from somewhere. It's coming from a collection of other images, and so whether that image that creates that, even though it's original artwork, it's coming from somewhere. This is why I think Adobe is going to win this battle, because Adobe has a product called Firefly that they're doing right now that's an image-based AI tool that you can tell it those things and it will create it. But Adobe owns their own image library. So all of the stuff that's being fed into the system is owned by them. And so I think that's going to be fairly protected from all the lawsuits.
Okay, in our industry, we have national sales, so we're a big insurance broker. And we use a lot of products for searching for, of course, prospects. So one of these organizations downloads everything from emails to home phones to addresses to their background. It goes into LinkedIn. It pulls from everywhere, so I know a lot about this prospect. And I can call his cell phones and his personal emails. But I also understand that this organization is on the spotlight for what it's called web scraping. And I know that this has been kind of a big issue as well. How is this being addressed? Because I know that this is going to become a huge issue as this becomes more and more, high tech.
Yeah, that's largely what these lawsuits are about, is the ethics of scraping the web, and is everything that's on the internet up for grabs, and there has been no conclusion yet. So it's still up for debate.
Most of them are fairly protective of things like email addresses, because I really tried to use this for prospecting in real estate. And there's a tool, because this is like a backbone, right? And this is just an application. You can get other applications. And there's one called Agent GPT that I've been using, which you can say, find a way to generate these leads from the Bay Area into Portland for people that are moving, and it will come up with like all these strategies and these things and put it out there. But what it won't do is say, can you give me 250 emails of people that are likely going to move here? It stops short of that, and I think that's probably to stop it from the lawsuits.
Okay, we've got another question back here.
Hello. Thank you for this very informative presentation. I feel so new to all this. I mean, I know AI, the word, but if I were to want to take something from this and go try to do this, and I heard there were words about it, there's a free version and a paid version. Can you explain a little bit to us about how to get started using this?
Sure. Yeah. Just go to openai.com, and that is the hub.
Patrick, would you go to the speaker? There you go.
If you go to openai.com, that takes you to the Chat GPT, which is what everybody's kind of using. There's also one for Google Bard and a Microsoft product that do something similar, but they're all free, and you just try it just like I clumsily did here. So.
Okay, we've got time for, 2 more questions, and I've got 2 more people. Here we go. I'm waiting for AI to come clean my windows and do my laundry, so.
It's coming.
I know a guy. Patrick Sheehan, you mentioned uploading the list of music in the park to chatbot. Yeah. How do you do that? Do you scan it and upload it?
No, I literally went to the website because I initially asked it to go to the website and find this information, and it wouldn't do that because it doesn't browse the web. Right. So all I did was I just opened up a new tab and went to Happy Valley's website, literally copied and pasted all of the info, and I literally said, I am about to copy and paste this information in here. I'd like you to create 6 social media posts around each concert. And if this were my system, I'd show you. I actually do have on Facebook, I used AI to generate the image of a happy family standing outside of a concert, and it used all of the hashtags and emojis and everything to promote this country music act that was coming to Happy Valley, and had all the right hashtags and trying to get people that are moving out of the city of Portland.
So when we see things pop up on our Facebook page like that, it's not necessarily coming from this person. The AI has created this thing for this person.
You still have to do it. It's just like someone wrote it for you. You still have to actually plug it in and press it. There's no automation to it, but you can see when like images are very clearly like Patrick's image of his suit was very obviously an AI generated thing, and you can see them. That's usually when somebody has 6 or 7 fingers on one hand. You can tell that that's an AI generated.
Hi. So Patrick, you mentioned that the AI fear is around, Skynet, Terminators, all that. Actually, my fear is more around the jobs and the people who are going to be displaced because of AI and especially ChatGPT. And I don't know if you know that one of the major sticking points for the SAG-AFTRA WGA strike right now is AI generated scripts, acting. So my question is, what as somebody who's keeping track of these things and the changes, what sort of protections are being put in place so that we don't see something like automation displacing the U.S. middle class in factories, like the same sort of destruction of jobs?
Yeah. So there's a couple questions in there. The first thing I'm going to say, it may make me unpopular in this room, I'm not sure, but we need universal basic income. That's the protection that we're going to get over the prospect of AI taking all our jobs. We need the government to step in and help us out with that. In terms of the SAG thing, I was always kind of laughing because the writers, now with the actors involved, it is a whole different ballgame. But when it was just the writers, I thought, like, don't you see, like, you're not at risk at all. It's the producers that need to be worrying. The writers, what's going to happen? And actually, you touched on it a little bit when you were asking about, like, okay, so when I see stuff on Facebook, like, that's not from a human, and we have this innate desire to connect with other humans, right? And it's why when we look at a painting and then somebody tells us, oh, a computer made that, it's suddenly somehow less impressive to us. And I think that quality of ours is going to evolve, and that our ability to perceive what is and isn't AI generated is also going to evolve, and that will serve as a natural protection. Certainly won't be enough, certainly won't be, especially with the evolution that we're seeing, it's evolving at a much higher rate. So it's there's going to be gaps, but even like with deepfakes, when deepfakes first became a thing, we were really afraid of those. And then we started to learn, like, okay, well, but the ears look a little bit different because you can't deepfake somebody's ears, or the body looks different because you can't deepfake a body. And you just start to pick up on these things that you have to look out for. And I think that will be a natural protection, and I think that'll save a lot of industries. It's just that, like, people will always prefer, or there will always be a value for, like, handmade items or human-made items. I don't think that value is going to go away.
Did you enjoy today? Why not pick pen? That's good. Thank you, Patrick. Number 1, and Patrick, number 2. Here, Stacy, why don't you hold that? Okay. Yeah. I was serious about somebody doing my windows and doing my laundry. And it was a great question about about the change in worker. But America has been built on that progressive change, and we adapt because we do know how to adapt and come up with something different. So I'm hoping that today gave you a glimpse of what it could do to your bottom line. And you could spend less time on doing some things so you have more money to hire somebody different to do something within your company. So there's always those kinds of options. I want to thank Patrick Sheehan and Patrick Burton for coming today. They are new friends, competitors yet not, and so tag team. You did a great job tag teaming, and we did everything we could to stop you. Thank you, Keith, for coming up with whatever the solution was. We appreciate those. So, next month we've got something going on. Stacy, do you want to have a chance to talk about next month? You can use that or this one. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I hope you can join us next month at our Business and Leaders Luncheon, or the BLT. We are going to have a legislative wrap-up. We have Senator Gorsuch coming, as well as Representative Ruiz.
They're both confirmed?
They're both confirmed. We're trying maybe for another person, but so far we have those two. It should be very interesting. We'd love to see you there.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And with that, thank you, Stacy, and she'll be in command next month, so come and support her at her very first BLT from this side of the podium. Thank you again, Aero Sanitary, Umpqua Bank, Portland General Electric, the Boeing Company, Mount Hood Community College as our presenting sponsors, Gresham Barlow School District. Isn't it interesting that the educational institutions are supporting the Business Leaders Luncheon? I think that should be noted. And thank you, MetroEast Community Media. I wanted to say something different because for months and years I would stumble over MetroEast to get there. But I said it right today. Don't forget to pick up the rebroadcast form. It's on the registration table. So have a great rest of your week. Go forth and make a profit. Bye.